National Fishermen and Pacific Marine Expo are proud supporters of the Galley Stories podcast, as we make similar efforts to highlight the people and topics that define commercial fishing. You can see what that looks like in print and online all year long, as well as every November in Seattle when this community comes together at PME. Check out nationalfisherman.com and pacificmarineexpo.com to learn more.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Alaska Brewing Company out of Juneau, Alaska. Go check out their new Wild Nest beer. Launched on March 1st, any place that you got a good retailer near you or your favorite watering hole. Here we go.
Hello guys, welcome to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of Bering Sea and beyond. I'm your host, Mark Cady. Today we have Captain Tony Nelson of the fishing vessel and tender vessel Western Star. How are you today, Tony?
Pretty good.
So we'll dive into it. Where were you born and what was your introduction to commercial fishing?
I was born, I don't usually tell people this, but I was born in Anchorage, but I tell people I was born in Kodiak because my mom was born and raised Kodiak, and my dad came up for a summer job in 68, 69 and fell in love with it, and then, met my mom, and, on the boat with my dad growing up. He quit fishing, started boom truck business when I was 10, so I never actually got to fish with my dad. But being on the boats up until I was 10, and then, I always wanted to be a fisherman. So, he always told me, do something with your brain, Tone. Don't kill your back and your knees, use your brain, don't be a fisherman. So I put my mind to being a fisherman. I don't know. Didn't listen, and wasn't smart enough to go do something with my brain. But I love this life.
When you were up till 10, what kind of help were you on the boat, or what boat, and what were you doing?
The John Boy, the Lois Anderson, the Sea Warrior. I'm trying to think. His boat sank a little bit before I was born, and so he was running other people's boats when I was a little kid. But we'd usually be tendering salmon around Kodiak or Southeast when I was on the boat. And then, when he's in town, go down, help out sometimes. But yeah, pushing fish and sorting fish. I just do whatever I could on the boat, help out. Probably bug the crap out of the crew.
What about, so when you started commercial fishing yourself, what age were you? What boat? What was your duties?
I didn't go. I was going to go do bear dive with my dad and my brothers at the end of high school, but I would have missed out on graduating. I would have missed out on my exams to go do that, and so that really kind of bummed me out that I stayed in school and did that instead of going fishing. So I got out that summer, and I looking for a job, and a buddy who knew my dad from fishing, knew that I'd been doing boom truck stuff with him since I was 11, 12 years old. And I heard that I could run a crane, and he's like, I need a guy for Bristol Bay tendering on the Gulf Winds. And so I got a job on there for the summer, swinging bags, brailer bags of salmon in Bristol Bay, and that opened up more seasons on there, and then ended up fishing Bristol Bay on a gill netter for a girl who I worked on deck with on there, who actually started. She started out slime line at the Ward's Cove, the yard arm knot, and then worked her way onto a boat, and then bought a permit, and bought a boat, and now I think she's fleet manager for Silver Bay now.
Who is this?
Angela Sisinski. Mm-hmm. She's awesome. She's like my sister. But yeah, I worked with her on deck, and then working for her in Bristol Bay, then I moved to pot fishing.
For cod.
Yeah, crab, cod. And then I blew my knee and my shoulder out, and I did the land job for a couple years. I thought my fishing career was over. I did longshore work and a couple other things to try and do something, but honestly, it didn't take. I couldn't handle being on land, and it wasn't good for me. And
wasn't good for you in what sense?
just mentally, I just felt like wasn't where I was supposed to be. I never really had a depression problem, but I felt depressed not being on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is, but it's just like the ocean, just something about it. Always felt like home.
So how'd you get back to it then?
And
how old were you?
Okay, so I was 18 when I went to Bristol Bay there the first time, and then I was 24, I think, 20, 21 or 22 when I blew my knee out, and then did the land job for a couple years, and I was working on getting my CDL to go truck driving, just something to progress on my land job, try and do something a little more lucrative. And a buddy actually called up my brother, who I fish on deck with him, and he's like, hey, you know anybody who wants to go dragging? And he we're in the truck together, and he looks around and he's like, you know anybody who wants to go dragging? And I was like, I don't know anything about dragging, like I did a little salmon fishing, but I don't know anything, but I'll give it a try. And he's like, all right, show up at the boat. And I showed up. First time I ever had a captain who was younger than me. He was a couple years younger than me, and I was like, I don't know about this, man. I mean, this is kind of crazy. I mean, I'm only, I think I was 25 at the time, and I was like, what's this guy know? And ended up, this guy, I mean, they had just bought, his boss had a couple other draggers, and they just bought a couple old, classic, boats that sat in the harbor most of the time. They were old draggers in Kodiak. Everyone knew them. They just sat in town most of the time. And he took that thing out. He actually ended up getting the job because the guy who was running the boat fell down the engine room hatch, hit his head, and he ended up having to take the boat. And then they just let him run it. And he was smoking all the big dogs with nice fancy boats, and
which boat was this?
The Dawn. It was actually, I talked to a few guys, it was cutting edge back in the day. They, I heard it was the first boat with a stern ramp, and it was the first boat with a forward net reel. Like, it was cutting edge back in the day. But when I got on it, I mean, the forward net reel was only connected to the deck with 3 out of the 4 legs, and the one would just sit there shaking when you haul back. And you didn't get in line with the net reel when you were hauling back, because you never knew if that thing was going to come flying off. Mm-hmm. Deck winches were pouring oil. It was it was a goat show. It was a death trap. But we were nonstop, just working on it. Joe, the owner, he was dumping money in it to get it by till we get to shipyard. After the first year, we took it down to Giddings there, and that was an ordeal, because we took the net reel off of his other boat, the Chalissa, and strapped it down in the trawl alley, and had chains and wreck straps all over, and took it down. And it was snotty going down. It, the last couple days, it was 30 plus footers. And I mean, we thought that thing was gonna, it ripped the deck up off the boat. And, it broke the trawl alley. The trawl alley was, laying over like the stanchions snapped off, the steel stanchions that hold the trawl alley together snapped off. We thought for sure we're taking waves all the way over the house, and and then one of the plotters gave out like 3-4 days from Oregon, and then the second one gave out a day and a half, 2 days before we got there. So we had zero navigation, and I'm just, we're using our phones to try and figure out where we are, and then we get to the jetty, they call it down there, the breakwater, and it's still 25 foot like rolling in there, and we have no navigation. Skipper, he's never driven in there. He's been on the back deck doing it, but never done it before. And the owner, he's up there on Chicken Point, up on the big hill there, just directing us in my cell phone, just like, all right, just hold that little bit starboard, just keep that, no, stay outside of that there, like you're getting too close over there. And we surfed that sucker in. Oh yeah, so we made it in there, and grace of God just made it was pretty wild. But yeah, that was my first year into dragging. We got the boat limp by. It was. I learned more on that boat than any other boat that I worked on, because I always worked on pretty turnkey operations, where things are well maintained, and you didn't have to replace anything in an emergency because everything was well taken care of and well maintained, and that boat had been derelict for 20 years, and so it was just a nonstop putting out fires on top of fires on top of fires, and learning out of necessity. That was definitely a better way to learn than, because having a mechanic come down and just do routine maintenance, good to learn how to do that, but you're not learning as much as, if you got to figure out how to do this to save your life, it's a whole lot more, it's going to imprint that in your brain. You're going to remember that. Yeah. And it was that nonstop. And, I was thoroughly impressed with Robbie, the skipper, his ability to just keep plugging and, make it work on such a...
Did shipyard help?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was phenomenal. We cut net reel off, all new deck, new trawl alley, put stainless stern ramp in, big new generator, new hydros, new deck winches. Yeah, because the old deck winches had these old Charlin motors that were weak and pouring oil out of them because there's more splash zone than steel holding the cases of them together. It was a goat show. It was, I remember going down to see a buddy like 10-15 years before that who worked on there, and I remember looking like, damn, Bob, this thing's a death trap. I'd never work here. And that experience kind of faded away in my memory, and then I took the job on there, and it kind of came back to me when I walked into the wheelhouse. I was like, oh my gosh, this is that wheelhouse. I totally forgot this was that boat. Now I'm the guy working here, and I worked there for several years, and I really liked it. Robbie's like my brother now. I love that guy. He hard worker, very determined, and he's just a fishy guy. There's guys who got it, and there's guys who don't. I met guys who've, their families are fishermen, and but they can't hardly catch a fish. But then there's guys who just kind of got thrown into it, who they're just fishy, and they just had it, and he's definitely one of them. And I got a lot of respect for that guy. But yeah, stayed on there for 3-4 more years. I think three more years, and then I ended up going back cod fishing out in Kodiak. My father-in-law, I always tried to not fish for him, just kind of keep that world separate. But he needed a guy, and so I went cod fishing on Kodiak. He has a 58-foot Fred ball there, cod fished with, and went out Kodiak, went and did that fishery for the fall and winter there, 2018, and I think that was, and went and I mean, I like fishing Kodiak. It is big weather. I mean, it's appropriately named birthplace of the winds. It was big weather, big fish. I like it out there. It's cool.
You were just dropping off to a tender?
No, delivering to the plant. They Golden Harvest was operating
in Kodiak.
Yeah, operating the plant there, and it was actually cool because we went and brought our dirt bikes out in the back tank, and for when we were in town, we'd go rip around the dirt bikes, go explore.
Cool historical place.
Oh, I'm a big history guy, so like seeing the old military establishment there, I mean, and like thinking about the fact that there was 50,000 people stationed there at one time, that's pretty crazy. I mean, because it's a ghost town now. Like, it's literally like walking through a horror movie.
The houses and stuff are still there.
Oh, yeah. And like a bunch of them, like, because they were sent there, they were supposed to go to the South Pacific, and then they, got sent to Kodiak. And so these houses aren't built for big weather. So, I mean, you got houses that are just like torn in half, some of them. Some of them are, still in good condition, but, it looks like a horror movie, like, post-apocalyptic horror movie or something. And, and 90% of the houses are empty. You can buy a house for $8,000. And, we thought about it, we always talk like, oh, buy a house, so, we come hang out at the house when we're in town, and, but then, we're talking about, like, if military moves back in, they just take it back for whatever you paid for it, so, you get dumped, $50,000, $100,000 into this place to fix it up real nice, and you get $8,000 back, like, thanks for giving us this nice house that we're going to tear down and, build a new base, but, yeah, so, did that, and then I was still looking at going back dragging, because definitely working with those guys, all the damage I'd done to my body previously, tearing tendons, blowing my joints, and trying to keep up. I'm 135 pounds. Trying to keep up with all the, old school guys that I started with, pushing 800-pound pot, blowing my back out, and, giving myself hernias and hemorrhoids, and trying to, do what the big guys did, because, like, I didn't want to, feel like I was a weak link, and, I was like,
So you're giving it all you got.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that guy, and, I'm not going to let my dad down, because, that's how I got a job, was, people knew my dad, and, my dad was always, a man's only as good as his word. If his word ain't no good, he ain't no good. And if you say you're going to do this job, you got to do it. And a job worth doing is worth doing it well or not at all. Those two things that stuck in my head, and, you don't quit. That was one thing. He's like, the only time that you don't listen to the skipper, you don't give him a Roger and do it to the best of your ability and with a smile on your heart, is if it jeopardizes yours or someone else's life. And other than that, you just say, yeah, Roger, and you do it with a smile on your heart, because that's your job. His job is to make sure you guys get the work done, and your job is to make his job easier so that he can focus on keeping you safe and making you money. And, so I tried doing that, and but also found that being a badass and being a dumbass go hand in hand. And my dad was right. Destroyed my body, like like he said I would if I did become a fisherman. And so I was like, I think I need to go back to dragging, because everything hurts so bad. And I was like, I'm just gonna be worthless on deck eventually. I don't want to end up like my old buddy Callie, who he sounded like an old wooden ship when he's 60 last time I worked on deck with him before he passed away. But yeah, it was like working with old creaking joints, and it was like wooden ship, but working with one on deck. And he told me, after so long, you just don't even notice it hurts anymore, Tone. And I was like, you're way tougher than me. I would have thrown the towel a long time ago, Callie. Like, you're tougher than I am. But yeah, I didn't want to end up like that.
So you worked your way to the wheelhouse?
Actually, on the Dawn, I kind of got thrown into that. We were flat fishing outside of Kodiak, and plant was backed up. They're like, oh, we got 2.5 days probably before you guys can deliver. And so we went to stall, and I was engineer, so I just sat there living on the boat watching the chillers, because Robbie's always stuffing the tanks, pushing the chiller to the max of its capacity. And all of a sudden plant calls. Robbie, he's like, we got 2 days. I'm actually going to take some time and go out the road with my razor and actually enjoy my life for once, because he's always on the boat. And because we're backed up and there's no way we're going to get to the dock. And so he goes out the road, out of cell service, can't get a hold of him, and plant calls, hey, can you guys be over here in half hour? We got a guy who, he's not going to make the schedule. So if you can get over here, we're going to get you in. And I was like, oh my gosh. Try calling Robbie, it's just going straight to voicemail. I call the owner. I'm like, hey, Joe, are you in town, or is any of the other guys who run the other boats in town that can come bring the boat over? Because we got this opening. Like, it's not Robbie's fault. They told us we weren't going to be able to deliver for a couple days. And then all of a sudden, somebody didn't show up. And he's like, well, you got it, right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you can get the boat over there, right? I was like, Joe, like, I've never ran a boat. Like, I've never, like, when I was 18, the skipper on the Gulflands, he made me drive through Falls Pass, doing like 14 knots with the cans. Like, he's like, well, you grew up in Kodiak, be on boats, like, before I was 10, like, thought that I knew how to dock a boat or something because I'd been on a boat. And, so he's like, oh, you got this, like, drive through Falls Pass. And I was like, it was like drifting a rally car, turning on the buoys before you even get to them. And, I was like, that's the most I've ever done is like driving through, Falls Pass and stuff like that. Like, I've never docked a boat. And he's like, well, you think you got it? I was like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, you got it. Like, just remember, only go as fast as you want to crash. I was like, oh my gosh. So, I go talk to the other two crew. I'm like, hey guys, if you're comfortable with this, like, we're going to do this. But I'm not going to do this if you guys aren't comfortable with me driving the boat. And the one guy, his old harbor guy, he's always a hard worker. But he was like, like, just don't be a vagina. And like, it's like, all right, like, just, you guys just got to be on top of it, like, just be on your A game, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I go get the boat, and we're, Dog Bay over Ramp 2, so we got to go around, like, you're, like, right up against the shoal there, like, you see the bottom out the window, like, it's right there up against the rocks that, like, where we parked. And so I'm, just white knuckle. I'm, like, never done this before. Get out, get over there, end up not smashing any pilings or anything. And, heart's pounding, and about had a heart attack. It's like, oh my gosh, I did it! Like, and Robbie comes into town and he's like, "Where's the boat at?" I was like, "Oh, I got it over to the cannery." And he's like, "What?" Like, yeah, no, I tried to get a hold of you, but so he brought the boat back, and then that before that summer, they asked me to take it for tendering for part of the summer, and so then they let me run it for half the summer for the rest of the time I was on there. The next 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years.
So you got a little more comfortable.
Yeah, and so it's still like Valdez. I mean, if you want to take a boat for the first time, probably don't go to Valdez because that harbor that sucks. I mean, yeah, and then all the little sport fishermen, and the salmon guys that no one uses rules of the road and no one uses the radio. But it's probably good. If you can drive in there, you probably tie it most anywhere. I mean, St. Paul's probably probably the worst place to go. But I got experience. So I actually got a little experience driving the boat there, just tendering, and so after I did that cod season on the Insatiable there in Kodiak, my brother-in-law, he was 19, 20, maybe. He wanted to, take the boat for the first time because been on the boat with his dad. Like my wife, she fished. They both fished with her dad. Growing up, my wife fished with him on deck until we had our first kid, and then and now she stays at home, does her cowgirl thing, and but he wanted to try taking the boat for the first time, and gonna let him take it for the summer, and wanted me to go with for just so he had somebody else that had ran a boat before. And I got a little bit of experience, but I don't know what I'm gonna tell him. He knows this boat better than I do. He's been on it more than I have, but it's fun. Garrett's a great guy. I mean, he's hardworking. He's one of the younger generation who isn't a complete lazy moron that you just get a lot of these guys who just want to be on their phone or don't want to work, or he's polar opposite. He's workaholic. I mean, he's fishy guy. Learning from his dad. I mean, his dad's a heck of a cod fisherman. I mean, there's a reason why they call him the cod hammer, because hammers them. But went out there, did that with Garrett, and then Ron bought some dungey gear. Wanted to go try out dungey fishing, so I rigged up 500 dungey pots with him. We loaded them on the boat after tendering, and we were gonna go, and I get a call from Sam Eads on the Topaz. I'd been trying to get on there, go dragging, because when I was on the Dawn, we always looked over there, and they got paid rotation, and those guys get to go home at a decent hour, and they always look happy, and and Chandlers are awesome people to work for. I've always heard great things about the deck platform on there and the owners, and I get a call from Sam, and he's like, "Hey, it's never lined up, either I have my spot filled, or you have something else going on, are you still interested in the job?" And I was like, "I'm actually getting ready to go dump dungey pots tomorrow morning." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to shipyard in the morning, and I have a guy who didn't show up. Got drunk and didn't show up. So if you want the job, you can go to shipyard, and then things work out. Go dragging." And I wouldn't normally just dip out on a job, but just in the last few days, there was 5 people calling Ron while I was with him, trying to get a dungey job on the Insatiable. They want to go dungey fishing, get in on that, and I was like, I wouldn't normally ask you this, I don't want to bail on you last minute, but I know there's solid guys back, lined up waiting to take the job, and I've been waiting for this job. But if I'm gonna screw you, like, let me know. And he's like, don't be an idiot. Take the job. Like, you've been waiting for this job. And I got on there, and I mean, Sam's ex-Marine. He, run things pretty, tight. Like, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. And, like, do things this way. But I like that, like, there's order to the boat. And, I mean, his dad's the guy who ran the Rough and Ready to, make it what it is now. Sadly, he passed, before they, made it big, and, the bad to the bone boat that it is now. But I always heard stories about his dad growing up, just wild man Ron. And, yeah, awesome guy. But getting to work for Sam, that was an honor. Heck of a fisherman, just a man of character, really a man of character. And then having Chandler's, the owners, I mean, they're awesome people. I really like them. But we did the shipyard down there. They were just redoing the Progress after Tiff blew the windows out and peeled the brow back on that thing, and getting to see that when they're finishing that project. And Tiff gave us a whole run through of the boat, and just how they had redone it. I mean, just crazy impressive, because I mean, they towed it past us when they peeled it back, and just like you had taken the ball cap bill and just flipped it up, like peeled that steel brow back like it was nothing, and then see it, the big giant monstrosity that they made it into. That was pretty cool. That's crazy now. Yeah, I got done with that shipyard, and then we went, did Pollock and Kodiak, and stayed on there for a couple years. And I, stayed on there because I, paid rotation drag job out of Kodiak. That was the job I was waiting for. I'd still be there. But my father-in-law called me up and he said, hey, I'm looking at buying a tender. Would you be interested in going in on it? And so we went and, looking at a few different boats. And we have looking at the old West Point, Western Mariner. And he's like, let's go check it out. It's $5 Dutch. And, I think went out there and checked it out. The old crab boat. He always had fiberglass boats. The only steel boats he had, he built brand new. And he's like, man, this thing's kind of a rusty piece of crap. Like I don't know, is this a good idea? I was like, this is in way better condition than 90% of the old rusty crab boats I've ever been on. Like, this is great, man. Like this is a good deal. I mean, I say we do it. And so we ended up in Dutch Harbor, getting the boat ready to go. It did the deal, and just kind of going through the boat. And luckily, Bryce Buholm, who was running the boat beforehand when they had it, he was there to try and get through it and show us the quirks of the boat, because brand new boat and a lot to it. And got to learn the boat a little bit, and then brought the boat back to Kodiak, stopped here in Sandpoint, got some fuel, made it back to Kodiak, and then I went and finished up my rotation on the Topaz, because I told them, because you do a 3-month contract, like so 3-month rotation. First month you're the cook, then second month you're the engineer, then third month you are sitting at home getting paid. And so everyone rotates out, everyone gets a chance. The guy who was the cook, he's been on the boat being the cook, he's talking to the engineer. learning what's been going on the time off and what's going on right now. Then he moves in the engine room, and the new guy just came off rotation. He gets to learn what's going on and then move into the engine room. And, I really like that setup. It was pretty awesome. So everyone knows the boat. And, I finished up that contract, and they went out, took the boat out to Kodiak and tendered their own cod. And then when I got done, then I took it for salmon and around Kodiak. And then we got asked to come out here for salmon, or go up on the north side, Port Muller, all that jive up there, and then they just kind of kept us out here, and then did bear dye in Kodiak with the boat. That was pretty fun. Get to go fishing again, because it's actually fishing. I get to do that.
Not having to be out on deck.
I actually was going and finishing up dungeons with Garrett on the Insatiable around Kodiak, and we get to switch out. I go up in the house and run gear, and so he'd go down deck. Cause, we both still being on deck. Get a workout still, and and then he can see things, how it's working out on deck, and hey guys, do this, and fine tune things. It's all about making it a more efficient machine, and so get to do a little bit of fishing.
What's been your favorite time at sea?
My favorite time, honestly, these recent years with the Western, having my daughter come out on the boat with me, because as a kid, my favorite time, because and hardly ever saw my dad, he was always gone, but getting to be on the boat with my dad, being a part of his world, and getting to share that with my daughter is definitely my favorite part.
How old is she?
She's 8 now, and she comes out here Sandpoint with me. She go around Kodiak, for a couple trips here and there. But now, she brings the boat out with me, and I have to fly her home before school starts. But,
you get that quality time.
Oh, yeah. It's, get such a better connection, just, and then, they get that work ethic, and see what it really takes, to pay for those horses, to pay for, the truck to, tow the horses, and, and to have the reward of working for the money that you get. And, a pair of $20 a day, and, my wife's like, that's garbage, you pay me, take me on the boat. Actually, it was super funny, because my daughter, my mom fished on deck with my dad, crab fishing and whatnot, and my mother-in-law, fished with my father-in-law, and I remember my wife I don't know how much my mom actually did on the boat, and then thinking my mom, I'm I don't know what she really did on the boat. She's just hanging out with my dad or whatever, and my wife, I know for a fact, she ran the rail, she's bad to the bone woman. I mean, she's hardcore. And my daughter, she's my wife's talking to her something about the boat, and she's oh yeah, I don't think we need to bring mom. She doesn't really know boat stuff. She's a cowgirl. And I was I don't think you know who you're talking about. Your mom's one of the most bad to the bone young ladies I ever met. She outworked a lot of guys I worked with, and you better watch what you're saying, because your mom will lay you out. Mom doesn't know boat stuff. But it's just funny seeing that. I told my wife, and she's like, that's super funny now, because I remember thinking there's no way my mom really did stuff on the boat. She was probably just sitting in the wheelhouse. And
She wasn't.
No.
What about your worst time at sea?
The worst time? There's definitely some scary times, and most miserable. probably all the most scary times I ever had were on the Dawn, because that was, like every other day.
Like going into the jetty?
Yeah, I mean, just like, things wouldn't work. Like, I remember we went to go leave at the end of that shipyard, and it took us 3 times leaving because, like the radar was broke, or, the sat compass broke, or I don't remember what else. Like, we just kept, turning around as soon as we get out the jetty, and we're like, what the heck? Like, we can't get out of here. I mean, another boat crashed on the jetty, and, I don't think anyone made it. I think they recovered one guy,
It's a dangerous place.
Oh, yeah. And it was a sad story because, like, those guys, he was best friend of the guy who owned the boat, and the guy who owned it passed away, and his best friend took it over and, was trying to get the boat going, and, I think they lost power getting out of there, and, it's a sad situation, but, I mean, people are always, the Bering Sea, like, it's, the most dangerous place. Honestly, I'm way more scared of the river mouths than, and like the passes and stuff, like out Adak, like Seaguam, or, somewhere like that. Like, that scares me way more than out in the Bering, where open water, it's the channels and the rivers and jetties, that stuff. Current is what, that current fighting the wind stacks up. That's most scary, then you add cold on top of that. That's,
Start building ice.
Yeah, that's...
What is the sea given to you?
Honestly,
besides ponies.
Yeah, lots of horses. Just fulfillment. Honestly, I didn't feel like when I worked land job, I felt like my life didn't have much use. Like I feel like I'm doing something with my life. Like, even just running the fish bus, tendering. I mean, just being on the water. Like, I feel
content.
Yeah, it's just being out on the water. Like, like when you're out and you can't see land, and you 40-footers. I remember, crossing the Gulf when I was, like 6 with my dad on the Sea Warrior, and like 40-footers, and just the feeling of helplessness. Like, you're just in God's hands. Like, there's nothing that you can do that's going to get you out of that situation. Like, it's
trust in the boat.
It's like you look at all these, old crab boats that have, the wrinkled in bows because the waves are way stronger than the steel. Like, you think about that force and how, you're not in control out there. I love that feeling. Because I'm kind of a control freak, and like having that,
takes it away from you.
Yeah, and it, like, that's why I always want to be a skipper. Cause I always want to be the guy. I don't want to be the guy who, like, why are you an idiot? Why are you doing it like that? I want to be like, well, why are you doing it like that? Like, yeah, and having forcefully having that taken, and having to step back and look at it from the big picture, like, there's nothing you can do about this. It's, like, fight things that you can fight, and, accept things that you can't. And I love that, that's just, and I mean, nowadays, like the weather, that's, we look up on our phone and be like, oh, hey, like, it's pinpoint, I found a little sliver of nice weather, I can sneak through there.
And it's accurate.
Instead of listening to, Peggy Dyson, tell you about,
She gets mentioned so many times.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Many episodes. What does the sea take it away from you?
Time with my family. That's, that's one thing. Like, I never really had a close relationship with my dad until I was an adult, because he was always gone. Like, we didn't really have that. And like, just kind of growing up in that, is not a, it's not like mean, there was love, but it just, you know, like old school. He was definitely
Old school love.
Yeah, and you know, and seeing what it did, you know, to the family. Then I'm like now like I really try and balance that, because you know, make sure the time that I spend at home is quality time. And that's, you know, people are all, oh, you know, you guys make all this money, you know, like see all the, you know, the gold crab chains and, you know, all the flashy cars and everything, and they don't see, you know, how many deaths we've missed, how many weddings, how many births. I've never been there for any of my kids being born, and you know, like that stuff like that gets at you.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like you sacrifice that, but honestly, the time that I get at home, I have unadulterated time with my kids where I can just give them my 100% present focus, and yeah,
months at a time or
yes.
weeks at a time.
Yeah, where like, you know, instead of, you know, I get
Most
home
parents-
at 6 and, you know, I've got to do the stuff around the house, and, you know, when I get home, I can take my kids and, you know, we're going exploring. Like, we're going to go do this, we're going to go do that, and, you know, and of course my wife's like, you're messing up the program, you know, like I've got this, you know, we have a schedule, we do it, you know, and you're messing up the program, you know. I get in trouble for that sometimes, you know, every time.
Well, Tony, thanks for taking the time with us today. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
You know, just don't be a quitter. Don't think that you can't do it. You know, don't think that there's guys who I've worked with, like on the Topaz. Peter, guy who came up from Montana. He didn't know his a-hole from his elbow about the water. He didn't even know how tides worked. He didn't know there was a thing as tides, because he lived, you know, Montana, and
lakes don't move much.
no, and he got a job working for Trident in Kodiak, the SOK plant there, and he ended up working his way up, I think he's night manager on the dock there, and ended up, you know, we get a rapport with the captains and talk to, you know, the right people, talk to Chandlers about getting a job on the Topaz, and he got on there and he didn't know anything about dragging, but, you know, the guy had drive, and, you know, he's still on there, you know, long after I was gone, and one of the best people I ever worked with, because, you know, he cared. That was another thing, a lesson that my dad taught me. When you do something, do it in a sense that when someone walks by and sees it, they say, man, who did that? Not, man, who did that? Yeah. And just like that. And Peter's one of those guys. And just be like that. Care about your job. And, you know, even if you're
whatever
not,
job it is.
yeah, doesn't matter. You know, take pride in it. And I think that's a big thing. Like, a lot of guys, you know, like, oh, well, you know, like when we got the Dawn, people are like, oh, well, you can't polish a turd. If you always keep treating it like a turd, it's always going to be a turd. You start treating it like it's a nice boat, that's how you turn it around. Turn your life around like that, you know. Just treat yourself like a professional. Be a professional, and you're going to end up finding yourself on a professional operation, because people are going to see that, and they're like, hey, you know, that guy there, like, they'll try and snake you away from the crappy job. They're like, hey, you know, like, you want to sit here on this derelict boat and, you know, you want to keep making no money? You want to come over here and work on a professional operation. And, that's probably the biggest
Build
thing.
that reputation, and you get a line waiting like the Topaz.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, Tony. Well, thanks again for joining us today.
No problem.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Check out our gear store in the bottom of every link. And as another thanks to Alaska Brewing Company as our sponsor. So we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Galley Stories. We hope you like what the net brought in. please leave us a review on iTunes. Whether you like it or not, we're not fishing for compliments. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter too, and reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com.